Joe Biden speaking to union workers and has already somewhat made reference to what everybody else seems to have been talking about for the last several days. Take a listen.
And I just want you to know I had permission to hug Lonnie. We had permission. All alone, but it's up to me. By the way, he gave me permission to touch him.
So there were two references there. The first one, as I understand it, was a reference to the union leader who had introduced the former vice president. Then also saying again he had permission to hug the child that you saw with him there on stage. I want to bring back in Nia Malika Henderson. There was question about whether or not this would be addressed, and if so, how it would be addressed. Making light of it sort of, I don't know, leaves me scratching my head.
Yeah, it kind of undoes the video, right? And the sort of work that he did in putting this issue in a different light, right? The video, he basically says this is a serious issue and that people have a right to their personal space, basically parroting what Nancy Pelosi said. So here, I think in many ways, he undoes that by making light of it and making it out to be one big joke. This is Joe Biden, right? I mean, he keeps stepping in. And if you think about what has happened over this last week, really, because that's when the Lucy Flores story broke, they have had, I think this is the fifth time they've addressed it, right? There were two statements from his spokesperson, then there were the two statements from Vice President Joe Biden, the final one, which was as close to an apology as I think we're going to get from Joe Biden, and this one, which essentially makes light of it and probably puts him a step backward, based on where he was. I guess that was on Wednesday. So, yeah, I mean,
well, to your point, too, as you said earlier, just in the hour, that it was the non-apology, the sorry, not sorry with the video.
Exactly.
He got flack for that. So then to come out and have this tone-deaf joke, it makes you wonder who he's listening to.
Yeah, and does he listen to anybody? Is there anybody around him with any sort of sophistication with this issue in terms of how to handle it? I mean, we knew this was going to be a question for Joe Biden, just in terms of him running. They clearly were caught flat-footed with Lucy Flores' allegations, which, again, weren't about hugging. It was about him smelling her hair and kissing her on the head. And so there he is, again, making light of it.
What's your reaction to President Trump taunting you on Twitter? What do you have to say to him?
Well, it doesn't surprise me. He doesn't have time to do his job. Look, everybody knows who Donald Trump is. So I don't have to say anything more, I don't think.
Mr. Vice President, do you think people to come forward and say they felt uncomfortable in your presence?
Say again?
You expect a lot more people.
Well, I wouldn't be surprised, but I've had hundreds and hundreds of people contact me and who I don't know, and say the exact opposite. Look, it is important that I and everyone else is aware that any woman or man who feels uncomfortable should have the right to just say, "Hey, I was uncomfortable with that," or hopefully we'll get to the point even before anything happens, say, "I'm uncomfortable with that." No matter what, and I really do understand it, but it's one of the things that, like for example, what made me say it, I wasn't joking. The President of the Union put his arms around me. Well, that's how it's always been. You've covered me a long time. That's how people react, and.
Mindful, but do you think you owe these women a direct apology who have come forward so far?
Oh, well, look, the fact of the matter is I made it clear that if I made anyone feel comfortable, I feel badly about that. That was never my intention, ever.
But there's some women who want to hear directly, I am sorry. Are you sorry for the way that you made this?
I'm sorry I didn't understand more. I'm not sorry for any of my intentions. I'm not sorry for anything that I have ever done. I've never been disrespectful intentionally to a man or a woman. That's not the reputation I had since I was in high school, for God's sake.
Mr. Vice President, you've always said you're not changing your brand, you're not wearing any funny hats. Is this whole episode of the past week, is this going to change how you campaign?
Well, I think it's going to have to change somewhat how I campaign. It's just like, the new thing is selfies. Everybody wonders why I take the selfie. so they don't put it on Instagram. So it's not put on. I mean, if I had the camera, at least I make sure it's a photo and I'm not doing something else, because you have to wonder, what anything's being used for. And so it's all changed, and it's changed even with you guys. Come on, each of you are aware of it in your personal relationship. It changes, and it's not a bad thing. It's a new thing. It's important, and I'm sure it's going to take a while for it to settle out. But it's settled out for me.
When will you be entering the 2020 race?
I'm told by the lawyers that I've got to be careful what I say so that I don't start a clock ticking and change my status. But I am very close to making the decision to stand before you all relatively soon. I think
within weeks,
days,
weeks.
What's the holdup? What's the holdup? Putting everything together, man. Putting everything together. Even if I knew for certain that I was going to run for president back in Thanksgiving, my intention from the beginning is, if I were to run, to be the last person to announce. So if everybody else their day, then I get a shot, and then we're off to the races.
Did the lack of a
Thank you.
formal operation this
Thanks,
week
everyone.
make your response trickier?
No.
Herman Cain is qualified to be on the Federal
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
Reserve. Herman Cain is qualified to be on the Federal Reserve.
I would pick someone else.
Mr. Vice
Thank
President,
you.
you said 2
Sir.
weeks ago that you were the most progressive person in the Democratic Party. There's a lot of candidates in this race.
No,
who
I said
disagree with
liberal. I didn't say progressive.
Oh, you said
Did I say progressive? Well, here's the point. That's changing too. For my whole career, I wish I had been labeled in Delaware the 7 times I ran as a moderate. I was never labeled as a moderate. If you look at my record with the ACLU, look at my record with all of the traditional liberal organizations, I have never walked away from. I'm not sure when everybody else came out and said they're for gay marriage. I'm not sure when everyone else came out and talked about a lot of the things I've talked about. But my point is the definition of progressive now seems to be changing. It is, are you a socialist? Well, that's a real progressive. Or you believe in, whatever. I mean, so I was talking about, up until this last time around, the traditional judgments of whether or not you were, quote, a liberal, was whether or not what your positions on race were, on women, what your position on LGBT community, what your positions on civil liberties. I'll stack my record on those things against anybody who's ever run, who is running now, or who will run.
The former Vice President Joe Biden speaking with reporters outside of a union meeting here in Washington, D.C., ending with I'm an Obama-Biden Democrat, and I'm proud of it. The Vice President holding court there for several minutes. The topic of most of the conversation, the controversy over several women who've come forward recently and said that the former Vice President made them uncomfortable by touching them, putting his hands on their shoulders, touching their arms, in one case kissing the back of a head. Those women say they feel uncomfortable. The Vice President is saying there that he gets it, that he will be more respectful, that he feels badly, and that he's sorry if anyone was offended by his conduct, but also saying repeatedly that never did he have any ill intent in showing affection to anyone there. Let's talk about it around the table. Answering questions after, if you were with us at the top of the hour, the former Vice President at the top of his speech made what he thought to be a joke. He embraced a union president, a man, walked over to the microphone and said, I asked permission beforehand. Now, I've watched the Vice President in dozens of these union gatherings. They do hug. They do embrace. He has known them for years. They are friendly. They are supportive. The joke about it seemed really off tone deaf. I'm being kind when I say that. He was trying to say after, come on, that's not a joke. I'm just being familiar here. What you saw there was actually one of the strengths of Joe Biden. Standing there, holding his own with reporters. He's conversational. He's friendly. He says he relishes the debate once he jumps into the race. What else?
I think it was Aliana who said this. It's the discipline question. It's a question of this political tone deafness, which is exactly what you said the last time we talked about this a few minutes ago. Yeah, that's a Joe Biden who would probably do very well on the campaign trail. It's just whether he can help himself from these other Bidenisms.
Well, if he hadn't said something that sounded tone deaf, at least to some people, I suspect many women, especially the women who have been in the news in recent days. I bet that they at least found that tone deaf. If he hadn't done that, if he had given a speech and then come out and talked to reporters like that and said, yeah, I feel really badly about it. Yeah, I'm going to behave differently. Yeah, if anyone took offense, I'm sorry. I didn't mean it. I never meant it. He said all the way back to high school. You could see how passionate he is about this. He said, God damn it, all the way back to high school. I'm a respectful person. Then we'd be having a different conversation today.
He was joking around on stage, but it just wasn't funny. It didn't land the way he intended. The other thing is, if coming out and talking to reporters is one of his strengths, why did he wait a week to do it? There was a week of this silence where his campaign was putting out these statements that were ineffective, and ultimately he put out a video with poor production value that it looked like it was shot on a GoPro that also didn't quite seem to do the job, and so he really let other people control the narrative for a week, I think to his detriment. And finally, when he did get out and talk to reporters just now, he handled it very well, but that's something he should have done 7 days ago.